From M&T Bank Stadium, it is the Banner Ravens podcast. Paul Mancano and Jonas Shaffer live on a Sunday in December to recap the Ravens' devastating 27-22 loss to the Pittsburgh Steelers here at home. We're going to break this game down, talk about what it means for the playoffs, talk about some controversial calls by the officiating crew in this game as well. All that and much, much more. But first, let's get a quick word from our sponsors.
For the fifth year in a row, Toyota is the best resale value brand according to Kelley Blue Book's KBB.com, including the 2025 Grand Highlander, best in resale value for midsize SUVs. Toyota, let's go places.
Looking for the ultimate game day spot? Head to Guinness, Baltimore. We've got fresh pints, the biggest screen south of the stadium, and the perfect place to cheer on the home team. Game time is Guinness time. All right, Jonas, the good news is your voice has healed itself. You are back to, what would you say, 80, 90% now?
Probable for week 14.
Probable?
Week 15.
Yeah, I mean, you played today.
Played hurt.
Talking after the game. You got through it all. The negatives...
I'm just here so I don't get fined.
There you go. That's the positive. The negative is that the Ravens haven't fixed themselves since the last time we saw them out on the field here on Thanksgiving when they lost to the Cincinnati Bengals, and they put up another clunker against the Pittsburgh Steelers. And Jonas, two things can be true. One, the Ravens did not play well enough to win this football game. They shot themselves in the foot. They committed a lot of the same mistakes that we've seen them make time and time again this season. But at the same time, the officiating in this game was controversial, perhaps suspect, and we're going to run through 4 plays in this game in particular that definitely swung the momentum and changed the course of this game. Sometimes you could say they were right, sometimes maybe not so much. But both the Ravens didn't play well enough, but also the officiating didn't really help them either.
Yeah, I mean, I think you look at like the comments to the Ravens game over tweet, and unless there's a serious false flag operation going on here, there are a lot of Steelers fans in the comments like, that was an Isaiah Likely touchdown, good game. And obviously, if you're a Steelers fan, you'd happily take the guilt you feel from benefiting from a questionable at best call if it means that you're now a game ahead in the AFC North, have a completely eliminated possibility of a Ravens sweep, which would be a huge tiebreaker in Week 18 if the Ravens do indeed catch up to Pittsburgh, which at this point I have my doubts. But yeah, it's just a situation where if you're in a Ravens-Steelers game, you know things are going to get weird.
Yep.
You know it's going to be close. You can't leave yourself open to the possibility of the officials deciding this game. And, you know, I don't think that call happened late enough in the game where it was ultimately decisive. Like the Ravens that was a first down pass, right? The Ravens had 3 more plays after that.
Yep.
And they had a drive after that. But, man, you know, just imagine how much the leverage points in this game swung because the Ravens were disadvantaged by a questionable and I think pretty bad call.
Yeah, we'll get to that call last. Let's go in chronological order. That would obviously the most impactful call in this game that drops the Ravens, by the way, to 6-7 on the season. At one point in this game, I'm pretty sure the referee made a 6-7 joke.
Well, he said it 6-7 as opposed to 67 a couple times. He definitely has an 8-year-old kid.
Yeah, he was. I don't know if he did the arm movements along with it.
Here.
No, we're not going to do it.
Because we did in the press box already.
Yeah. All right. Let's talk about the controversial calls here because it started in the second quarter when Travis Jones was called for a personal foul. It wiped out a Pittsburgh Steelers field goal, gave the Steelers 1st and goal. They end up scoring a touchdown on that drive and make it a 17-3 game. Travis Jones ran into the long snapper, and I think it was Mike Pereira on the broadcast was saying that probably shouldn't have been called because he made contact with the guard first. We got an explanation from the referees through Jeff Zrebeck of The Athletic. He said the referee explaining this play said it doesn't necessarily matter who is contacted first. The snapper is still by rule a defenseless player. Now, Jonas, this is not a regular play where a center, you can bull right past him and get to the quarterback. In this instance, this is a long snapper who is a defenseless player and must be protected. What did you think of the call that allowed the Steelers to go up to 17-3 in this second quarter?
I mean, I'm going to claim ignorance on this. I'm much more familiar with the rules of what makes a catch as opposed to what makes a personal foul against the long snapper. I know that the long snapper is a protected species, and you see, guys get in trouble for hopping the long snapper and touching him. So, we've seen like the slightest touches of guys of the long snapper be penalized because guys are trying to get cute and try to jump him and get a jump on the snap. So I don't know. I mean, it was Travis Jones seemed miffed by it. John Harbaugh seemed miffed by it. I guess the guys on the broadcast seemed miffed by it. It's just a situation where, this late in the season, Travis Jones should know better. Like, just don't give the referees the opportunity to make that call. And even if it is bumper cars down there on the line of scrimmage, just do what you can to avoid, a potentially game swinging penalty. It just, it goes from 3 points to 7 points, and the Ravens end up losing by 5 points. And if, Tyler Loop makes his extra point, we're talking about a potential tied game there at the end. And what changes is just so many little small things have added up into this loss. And you just thought that Travis Jones, who I think over his career has been very much a law-abiding citizen. Like, you don't really expect Travis Jones to be penalized in the way that Nabi Madubuike was, for instance, when he was kind of landing on quarterbacks or maybe taking some late hits. Like Travis Jones, you expect that guy to play by the book, to play by the rule book. And I guess in that way, I would tend to err on his side. But like I said, I just don't really know enough about the rules to weigh in definitively on what exactly should have been the call.
John Harbaugh was caught on the hot mic talking to the referee. He said, you can't touch him, as in the long snapper, his head or his neck. That's the rule. That's what Travis Jones said as well after the game, that he didn't think he touched his head or neck. It's a very specific call that you don't see made very often, but also the Steelers players recognized it pretty immediately and were lobbying for a flag there. So that one's a controversial call. We jump to the fourth quarter, where Aaron Rodgers started out playing very well in this game. And in a lot of instances, he was shaking off defenders. He was making great throws down the field. He was looking kind of like his old Aaron Rodgers. The Ravens defense clamped down as the game went along, and he made one of the boneheaded plays that he has been known to make recently, which is throws the ball over the middle of the field, deflection by CJ Okoye. He catches it, and as Aaron Rodgers is going to the ground, pulls a David Tyree and pins it against his helmet, as Teddy Buchanan is also trying to wrestle the ball from him. The call on the field initially was an interception, that Teddy Buchanan did get possession of that ball. They reverse the call, and they call it a pass by Aaron Rodgers and a catch by Aaron Rodgers, which would be his fourth catch of his NFL career. Steelers end up having to punt the ball. Ravens don't end up with as good field position. They have to come all the way down the field and score a touchdown. They fail to do so, and that's that. What did you think of that call, Jonas?
I mean, I think John Harbaugh probably had the most compelling argument against it, which was, in the same vein of why is a Jamar Chase slight push off not called last week, and Zay Flowers' slight push off is called, and this week you have Aaron Rodgers not really seeming to, quote, survive the catch as he brings in that deflection.
Aaron Rodgers surviving the catch is hilarious.
Yeah, it sounds like a kind of trip for him.
Yeah. One of his darkness retreats.
Yes, yeah, exactly. And meanwhile, you have, Isaiah Likely getting 3 steps and seemingly pretty conclusively doing what he needed to establish possession. Meanwhile, if you slow any play down long enough, it's going to look like Aaron Rodgers has the ball. You can rip that away from him pretty quickly. And the fact that, I guess it just depends on where the ball is, like in relation to your body, that is ultimately decisive here. It leaves me, again, wanting to know more about the rule book in cases like this, but also feeling like, man, that was, again, another wasted opportunity to talk about the Ravens. Instead of starting over at the 32, they have to take over at their 22-yard line. And no guarantees that they would have come away with any points on that short field possession, but it just felt like everyone in the stadium was expecting Teddy Buchanan to have completed that interception, especially Teddy, because he came over to where we were standing or to where we were sitting in the press box, that corner of the end zone, and was strutting and thought that there was no way that they were going to take that away from him. But lo and behold, they did.
Yeah.
And pretty quickly too, right?
Yeah, that was a pretty quick overturn there. One of our commenters also points out it was Gene Steratore, not Mike Pereira on the broadcast, so that's my apologies there. But yeah, that was a very difficult momentum swing to swallow in that game because it just felt like the Ravens were finally getting things figured out on defense. The offense was clicking a little bit, and then yes, they get the ball back after that's a 3 and out, but it would have meant a whole lot more if they start that drive with better field position. All right, the third call in this game. This one, to me, was probably the least controversial, but that's Rashin Ali in the fourth quarter takes the ball on a completion over the middle, which frankly was a dangerous pass by Lamar Jackson in traffic. He spins out of a couple tackles, ends up with a 2-yard run instead of what would have been a first down run because it is ruled that his elbow is down when he is spinning out of some of those tackles. What did you think of that play that resulted in the Ravens getting a field goal?
I didn't get a great view of it either on the jumbotron or the TV because my head was down trying to punch away at a gamer. Did you see? Look, it was pretty close for either the wrist or the
yeah, it was awfully close. But the referee made the call immediately, and it was one of those where you can't change that. You can't go back and change that because they were blowing the whistle and the play was dead. But yeah, I mean, if he stays up there, if they don't call him down there and he gets first and goal, Ravens have a much better chance, obviously, of punching it in.
Right.
They get a field goal in that drive. It makes it 27-22, and that would be the final score. And then the fourth and final controversial call deserves the most airtime is the Isaiah Likely touchdown, which was reversed in the end zone. The rules for what a catch is, Jonas, there are 3 parts. 1, to secure the control of the ball in the hands or arms prior to the ball touching the ground. Check. Isaiah Likely did that. Touches the ball inbounds with both feet or with a part of his body other than his hands. Check. You got both feet down. The third part, and this is the most crucial here, after both A and B have been fulfilled, that the receiver clearly performs an act common to the game. Examples listed are extending the ball forward, taking an additional step, tucking the ball away and turning upfield, avoiding or warding off an opponent, or he maintains control of the ball long enough to do so. We got an explanation again through Jeff Zrebeck from the officiating crew that the third step is an act common to the game, and before he could get the third foot down, the ball was ripped out. Therefore, it was an incomplete pass. Jonas, what did you think of that call?
I think pretty clearly he got the third foot down. I don't know why there is this wiggle room. You know, if Steelers fans and Ravens fans can agree on this, then I don't know why this was reversed. It just seemed like, you know, I understand that maybe him keeping the ball away and not bringing it in close to him might have been ultimately counterproductive. But I think the fact that he got a third step down was pretty conclusive. I mean, like he catches the ball with one foot, boom, boom. That's 3 steps, and then the ball fades away. And I don't know why, with all of the money that's poured into this game and all the expertise that we have, taking care of the calls here, that something like that would go that way. Again, I could be completely wrong on this, but it seemed like it was pretty black and white that he got 3 steps down.
Yeah, and it was one of those plays because it was overturned on the field. I don't believe the Ravens were able to challenge that play, correct? Even though it was no longer ruled a score, they were not able to challenge the play. Now, again, this is 1st and 10. The Ravens had the ball at the 13-yard line. They score that touchdown, they go up and have a chance to go up 3 with a 2-point conversion in that instance. They don't score that touchdown, they don't get the first down. They don't even get to first and goal. So they had 3 more opportunities to at least to get a first down, let alone get into the end zone. That is a failure on the Ravens offense because Derrick Henry stuffed for 3 yards. They pick up 8 yards on 2nd down. Derrick Henry stuffed for 3 yards, and then it's an incompletion on 4th down. Quite frankly, no matter what that call is, the Ravens should still be able to punch the ball in from the 13-yard line when you're playing 4-down football in that instance. However, it's incredibly frustrating to see what should have been a touchdown taken off the board.
And just looking on right now, like I don't even know that he needed a third step. If you were securing control of the ball with 1 step and then you're touching the ground inbounds with another, and the fact that you're holding onto the ball like this, that feels like that qualifies as an act to come into the game, then why do you even need this third step? It's just that we're introducing a variable here to try to legislate our way as to why this was overturned. It just, like, I'm not a lawyer, don't pretend to be one, but it seems like we're making up a provision here and trying to apply it to something where it has no application.
Right. And this is, I can already hear, I know you mentioned the Steelers fans coming to the defense of Ravens fans in the comment section, but I can also already feel the Steelers fans going back and watching this and saying that we and other people who are covering the Ravens are, just blaming the refs in this instance, or not. We want to make it clear that the Ravens still deserve to lose this game based on the way that they played. And even if they get that 2-point conversion, there's no saying that the Steelers don't come down the field and at least kick a field goal to send the game to overtime. There was over 2 minutes left on the clock. Ravens also had an opportunity at the very end of the game with one timeout left to come down the field and try to take the lead again. They had plenty of opportunities in this game.
We do have DeAndre Hopkins weighing in on a quickly deleted tweet. He tweeted once or twice, first at the NFL and then at the NFL officials. 13 years in this league, how many steps do you need in the end zone for a touchdown? So my condolences to DeAndre Hopkins' game check for this week.
Yeah.
It's probably taking a little bit of a hit.
Isaiah Likely, after the game, did not take the bait. He said that was the call that was made. You have to move on. You have to live with it. He was given several opportunities to try to criticize the refs. He took the high road in that instance.
And John Harbaugh, again, did not really answer the question about whether he thought, at least as far as I can tell, whether he thought that was a touchdown, just deflecting and asking if that was not a touchdown, why was the Aaron Rodgers interception overturned?
Lamar Jackson said he thought it was a touchdown. Rashad Bateman said he thought it was a touchdown. The fact that this comes a little over a week after Isaiah Likely had the ball punched out of his hands just as he was about to cross the goal line for what would have been his first touchdown of the season against the Bengals. It's absolutely brutal timing. You sandwich those 2 weeks with Mark Andrews getting an extension and making it perhaps less likely, no pun intended, that Isaiah will be back with the Ravens next year. And this just nightmarish season, which started with foot surgery during training camp, continues to get worse for Isaiah Likely, and you have to feel for him.
You have to wonder about just that witch that placed the curse on the Ravens.
The Etsy witch? I don't believe in him.
It's looking pretty sketchy right now.
It's not looking great. I don't think anybody cursed him in particular, just the Ravens in general, correct? Yeah. Have you ever bought an Etsy witch?
Nope.
Would you ever?
No.
No? Why not?
Because I have other.
You have several Amazon tabs open on your computer. I'm thinking you're doing some holiday shopping here.
Well, I was going to surprise you with some surprise Starbucks because I got a $100 gift card for a Steelers podcast appearance.
Maybe wait until their employees stop striking, but then maybe after that.
Sure, yeah. Ever the ethical podcaster.
Exactly. All right. Well, let's now that we have the ref conversation out of the way, let's talk about what went well, what did not go well for the Ravens in this game, because ultimately the refs can only have so much control over the outcome of a game. Let's talk about Lamar Jackson first and foremost, because he has been the key topic for the last several weeks as he deals with his numerous injuries. Gianna and I did a podcast earlier this week where we said Lamar Jackson was at Wednesday practice. This is terrific. He's going to be healthy the whole week. He's not going to be hampered by that ankle injury. And then he missed practice Thursday as he was stepped on by somebody in practice. He said after this game, as he has said all season, after every game, that he is well enough to play, that he felt fine. He looked pretty good scrambling around there, Jonas. He scrambled for a touchdown in this game. He threw a touchdown for the first time in 4 games. He finishes 19 of 35 for 219 yards with that touchdown and an interception. Jonas, what did you think of how Lamar played today?
I thought it was fine, but they needed better than fine, especially considering what Aaron Rodgers, the Steelers, 5 straight games now under 60% completion percentage. Another, his interception last week was not really his fault, but this one was just kind of you're better throwing that ball or just running out of bounds on that third down scramble. This is a Steelers defense that came into this game pretty banged up, especially up front. It got progressively more depleted with losing Blake Harrison, PQ left for a little bit. Eccles, their nickelback, got knocked out of this game for at least a little bit.
The guy who had the interception
Yeah,
against
and a sack early on, and just the Ravens could not.
or sorry, James Pierre had the interception.
Yeah,
Yeah, Eccles had the sack.
right, and
Blowing by Daniel Falalele.
the Ravens just again couldn't really do their job in the high leverage spots. 7 for 18 on third down, 2 for 6 in the red zone. So somehow in offense, that was like 40 to 45% conversion rate inside the 20. It's even worse. And of course, it comes in the most high leverage of games imaginable this week. It just was very, very. It's like disheartening to see Aaron Rodgers able to take advantage of one-on-ones down the left sideline, and Lamar's like the bulk of Lamar's passing production is again him finding people out of structure, and I don't know how much of that is him not trusting the pass protection. There was apparently a report from CBS Sports during the game that he blew up again Lele for one of those after a 4-man rush, and the Ravens are forced off the field again. But he wasn't asked about that post game. That was a own goal by us. We should have asked him to ask one on Wednesday or Thursday. But I also, at the end of the game, was kind of thinking like, you can't prove a counterfactual, but if Lamar were healthy enough to have been participating in practices the past couple of weeks, like all 6 of them, do we see better execution from this offense on that 3rd and 2 that ends up with a pre-snap penalty and a 3-yard loss that the Steelers end up accepting? Do we see better execution on that 2-minute drive where the Ravens are just melt a minute away, moving 20 minutes on the field? Are we starting to see the accumulation of like the value of practices lost by Lamar Jackson because he's needs to rest to feel better? Like, is that affecting this team's situational execution? And if so, that's a big deal because none of the 4 games the Ravens have remaining are going to be cakewalks. In fact, like it might be an underdog in all 4, and so you have to be elite with your execution in some of these situational football spots. And the Ravens, for as far back as week 2, basically have not been that in goal line situations and red zone situations. But if you're now porting that over to 2-minute drill, 4-minute drill, 3rd and shorts, 4th and whatevers, it's hard to see this offense catching fire and capturing the momentum that had at the end of the last year, because you're just not getting the time on task. You're not getting the reps that you need with all these moving pieces. And we see people leave this game. We see guys coming in and out of the lineup. We see Andrew Jones today, which was a bit of a surprise. But if you're going to have this kind of turnover at key spots, you're going to need everyone to be on the same page. And if your quarterback isn't healthy enough to be practicing Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, then you're going to be playing with not every page that playbook accessible to you.
Yeah, and we still don't know what the issue is behind the accuracy problem. I mean, again, there were issues today in Lamar getting the ball to his targets in great spots. I mean, even that first drive of the game, that deep ball to Zay Flowers down the sideline, Zay makes a great catch there, perhaps a little bit overthrown. There's another play in the game where he tries to find on Zay Flowers on the sideline, and he throws just a little bit high. Zay Flowers' foot drifts out of bounds. It's an incomplete pass. There were
skips a pass to Derrick Henry coming out of the flag completely unblocked. So there's the go ball to DeAndre Hopkins that D-Hop makes the catch on, but too far out of bounds. Give these guys the opportunity to catch the ball. And, it just hasn't happened as often as it's needed to.
Yeah. But we can't all pin it on Lamar Jackson, of course. The Ravens offense has been on the struggle bus for weeks now, and it hasn't all been Lamar's fault. I mean, Rashad Bateman in this game, and he owned up to it after the game. He said he needed to catch that ball. It was a crossing route on 3rd down in the red zone. Drops the ball. That was a very catchable ball that he should have caught and set the Ravens up with 1st and goal. The Ravens have to settle for a field goal in that instance. There were plenty of times in this game where the players around him let him down. You mentioned the offensive line and the report by Tracy Wolfson on the broadcast that Lamar had a heated exchange. I don't know if she used those words with Daniel Falalele. What she said specifically was, after the interception, Lamar threw his helmet. He then had a talk with right guard Daniel Falalele. He said, "They know it's coming every time." Zay Flowers then came over and added to the discussion. Would love to know what "they know it's coming every time" meant. What do you think it could have meant in that instance?
I'm not sure because
We'd just
to
be
my
speculating.
recollection, it was only a 4-man rush.
Yeah.
So I don't think he could have been talking about a blitz. Maybe it was something exotic. But yeah, I mean, it's just disappointing showing. I think Lamar had a decent amount of protection. Just looking at some of the PFF preliminary grades, which again will change over these next 24 hours. But the tackles held up okay. Ronnie Stanley, one pressure allowed. Unfortunately, I think it was that game-ending sack by Alex Highsmith, Roger Rosengarten, just 2 pressures. Andrew Voorhees, just 2 pressures. And then unsurprisingly, number 2 is Daniel Lele, who just had some Olay blocks today that were egregious, especially in that first half. And then Tyler Linderbaum, 5 pressures allowed today, which is not what you want to see. I think he was a very, very impressive run blocker, especially on some of those, cutback plays and zone runs that they got going in the second half. But um, you know, I think they needed to at least have a stalemate against the tackles that Pittsburgh has. And even though Derek Armand was missing, they weren't able to do that on pass protection. And Lamar was out of spots a couple times, and not able to feel totally secure on some of those dropbacks, and kind of had a cancerous effect on the rest of the offense.
If Eric DaCosta, John Harbaugh are waiting for Daniel Falele, Andrew Voorhees to have the kind of final third push and uptick that they had last year, they should stop waiting. I don't think it's coming at this point. And if you're a fan and hoping that Emory Jones Jr. was going to supplant one of those guys, one, it's not going to be Daniel Falele because John Harbaugh's pretty much ruled that out. And two, Emory Jones Jr., as you said, Jonas didn't play. I don't think he played a single snap in this game, did he? At left guard?
Corey Bullock was the only guy who got snapped as the offensive lineman in this one.
So what you see is what you get. It seems like maybe they'll go back to the tape and determine that they want to cycle Emory Jones Jr. back in there against Cincinnati next week. But for now, what you see is what you get, and what you get is not very good.
Although, I mean, running game wise, you look at the total figures here: 40 carries, 217 yards, nearly 5.5 yards per carry. Obviously, Keaton Mitchell had the explosive 55-yard run, and you hate to see him leave this game with a knee injury. We should say that John Harbaugh said they would know more tomorrow about his availability long term, but it's not a good situation for the Ravens, having just lost Justice Hill, that they're now down to 2 healthy running backs for the stretch run. They're going to need to bring in at least one more guy to fortify things there. But again, just not a 4-quarter effort from this group in terms of its run blocking. Like, they weren't able to do anything really in that first half. They were able to finally start to wear on the Steelers run. Maybe that was because of Malik Harrison going down, PQ going down, and just the wear and tear that this Ravens offensive line was able to force onto the Steelers defense, but just wasn't good enough in other spots.
And Derrick Henry does go over 1,000 yards for the fourth straight season. Kind of quietly over 1,000 yards. That's just Derrick Henry doing Derrick Henry things. 25 carries for 94 yards in this game, but it's sure he might end the season with maybe 1,200, 1,300 yards, but just knowing what it could be, seeing what it was last year, where he has almost 2,000 yards, it's nothing but a dramatic drop-off that is mostly the fault of this offensive line and the play calling.
Yeah, I mean, I know people have pointed to his tracking data suggesting that he's slower than he was last year, and even if that's true, I do think the average speed has been dragged down by the fact that he's just very rarely getting to the line of scrimmage without being contacted. I think today was a little bit more promising for him. I think he was a little bit self-critical and said he wanted to look at the film and didn't feel like he'd had the best game that he could have had, especially when you look with the kind of explosives that Keaton Mitchell was able to have. But it's hard to wrap your mind around just the success or lack thereof for this run game. I think I tweeted at halftime that the Ravens' rushing success rate was 25% against a Steelers front that last week got allowed 50 or 40, 45 to the Bills, and a Bills team that was missing its starting tackles. So you can't afford to wait until the third quarter to really get your running game in gear, especially with how poorly the Ravens started this game in general on both sides of the ball.
Yeah, if you watch that Steelers-Bills game, I mean, the Bills just took it to them on the ground, and you were hoping that the Ravens would be able to do something like that.
And you saw them instead having no confidence in the run game, to the point where, or having little minimal confidence in the run game, where they were settling for those screenplays that weren't really working or weren't being executed without a flag. And as an extension of the run game, those screens have not worked in anywhere close to the same degree that they did last year. And so you're just you're kind of stuck wondering what exactly to turn to when nothing is working.
Yeah. All right. Let's talk about the defense, because the rushing defense was terrific in this game. They held the Pittsburgh rushing offense to, in this game, 17 carries for 34 yards on the ground, 2 touchdowns, one of them by Aaron Rodgers, by the way. This note from Jamison Hensley, by the way. You wanted me to read this?
Yeah.
All right. I'll read it out here, Jonas. The Ravens are the first team since 2022 to lose after producing 200-plus rushing yards and allowing 50 or fewer rushing yards, according to ESPN research. Yeah, so they controlled the ground game for the most part. Obviously, could have done better on offense, but on defense, certainly I thought that they held Jalen Warren, Kenneth Gainwell in check. The secondary, I wish we could say that they had the same type of success. I mean, there were plays in this game that made Aaron Rodgers look like the old Aaron Rodgers, which is something that he has not done pretty much all season. I don't understand the coverage on DK Metcalf. He got open for several deep plays. There were several times. There was one play down the sideline where Chidobe Awuzie is beat by Calvin Austin. It obviously starts with a pass rush. They didn't get to Aaron Rodgers enough, and when they got home, they weren't able to bring it down. But
didn't sack him once.
It's that combination of the pass rush and the secondary. They have to marry each other. They did not in this game.
Yeah, was it the first quarter, the second quarter, where Aaron Rodgers had like all day to kind of drift in the pocket, and he finally hits DK Metcalf on the crosser.
Yep.
Just like, and I think my
41 yards over the middle,
right, and then also I think like the first drop back of the third quarter is another explosive for Aaron Rodgers.
Was it the 38-yarder to Jalen Warren down the sideline?
That I don't remember, but what I remember being struck by was that the Ravens, expecting the run on that play, had sent David Ojabo and Brent Urban onto the field as their edge rushers. So, surprise, surprise, they were not able to generate much of a pass rush, even though, again, this Steelers team does not have a starting left tackle, has just not been all that secure up front. And again, surprise, surprise, it seems like teams are starting to figure out these Ravens exotic pressures. We saw how many times the Ravens walk a man up, threatening cover zero before the snap, and then not actually kind of able to generate the unblocked pressures that they were in weeks past, and certainly in years past under Mike Macdonald. Draymond Jones was a nice addition, but he has not changed the paradigm, I think, enough where any respectable offense has to really fear this four-man pass rush, especially when you have guys like McGreen, just with him in the open field on a 42-year-old quarterback.
Yeah, and when you're bringing extra blitzers, I mean, it works at times. I mean, the ability to bring Kyle Hamilton as a blitzer, they've been using Lohi Gilman as a blitzer at times, not to great effect. He didn't get home in that crucial touchdown that Joe Burrow threw against for the Bengals on Thanksgiving. That was a crucial play. And the 38-yard touchdown to Jalen Warren in this game, they're bringing Lohi Gilman in as a blitzer, and Jalen Warren is just left on an island.
Yeah, just they're dropping Mike Green. Doesn't look like he knows who to relate to on that one.
No, and Pat Freiermuth was also streaking right up the seam, wide open as well. There were 2 wide open lanes for a touchdown there. It could have gone to either guy, and he would have rumbled towards the end zone. So if the opposing offenses are now figuring out where these blitzes are coming from, and they're able to predict when they're coming, Ravens have their hands full because they can't get pressure with just 4 guys, and they're just left to, all right, let's send some of our cornerbacks, let's send some of our secondary members on blitzes.
Right. I mean, I think you expected at some point, like with the amount of short passes that the Ravens would get got, because if you're an offense that subsists only on these short passes, then eventually you expect with some of the talent that Pittsburgh has at that running back position, they would be able to break one, but just the deep passes can't happen, and they hadn't happened. I think tweeted during the game, this was Aaron Rodgers' first completion on pass beyond 20 air yards since week 8. I think he'd been 0 for 7 in the previous 4 or 5 games in that span. He had 3 deep passes today. I think we got a stat from Next Gen Stats about this one.
Aaron Rodgers, 3 deep passes, considered 20 or more air yards for 121 yards against the Ravens. with all deep targets going to DK Metcalf.
Yeah, he had not completed a deep pass in the entire month of November and had just 7 deep completions on the season entering 14. So to go from 7 all season to 3 in one game, not a good look. And your point about DK Metcalf, you can only play too high for so many snaps. Like you're going to have to at some point leave your guys open out there on an island. You would expect Marlon Humphrey to fare better. You would expected Nate Wiggins to fare better. Obviously, Cheeto just got beat off the snap, off the release on that one, and not a whole lot that he can do with him not having the range and the speed that he once did. But if Aaron Rodgers, who for like the past month had been statistically one of the worst quarterbacks in the NFL on a down-to-down basis, finishes today with 0.3 EPA per play at his MVP level, and then you look at the quarterbacks on the Ravens schedule, who they're going to have to deal with, and the wide receivers the Ravens are going to have to deal with. Next week, you got Joe Burrow, probably another week stronger. T. Higgins came back today, had a nice game. I think he was out for a little bit with maybe a concussion, so hopefully he's okay. But obviously, the Ravens didn't have to deal with him last week. You've got Drake May, the MVP front runner, and a very, very healthy Patriots passing game the week after that. You've got Jordan Love, who's also playing at an MVP level efficiency with probably 3 receivers better than DK Metcalf on that Patriots roster. And then you've got Aaron Rodgers in Pittsburgh, and that's obviously the weakest quarterback, the weakest contender of that crop. But if we saw the Ravens,
he just torched you.
If he goes for a season high in passing yards by the third quarter in Baltimore, then imagine what he can do with a little bit more friendly confines and maybe a healthier offensive line in Pittsburgh. So it's very easy to see this defense bottoming out just as this offense maybe has a bit of hope with Lamar Jackson coming to help. And, you were kind of reminded of the troubles of this defense early last season where they were like so elite at run defense that you could argue it almost kind of hurt them because teams didn't even bother to try to run the ball on first down or second down. They were like, we're just going to take our chances throwing the ball against Brandon Stevens or Marcus Williams or whatever, because we like our odds there, even though like the normal game script would suggest that we just hand it off. And you wonder, I thought that Pittsburgh, because of Darnell Washington and their size and just the Ravens matching everything with nickel personnel, would be a little bit more committed to running the ball. And they didn't have to because they were so good at just converting in chunk plays. And it's just a very, very disappointing effort from the Ravens defense, especially because they had the mini bye to get ready.
Yeah. All right. Well, on the other side, we're going to look ahead to the playoff picture, how the Ravens can get back into this thing. On the other side of another quick break.
For the 5th year in a row, Toyota is the best resale value brand according to Kelley Blue Book's KBB.com, including the 2025 Grand Highlander, best in resale value for midsize SUVs. Toyota, let's go places.
Looking for the ultimate game day spot? Head to Guinness, Baltimore. We've got fresh pints, the biggest screen south of the stadium, and the perfect place to cheer on the home team. Game time is Guinness time.
All right, Jonas's favorite segment, New York Times playoff picture. What are the Ravens' percentage chance of making the playoffs down to?
Not great, Bob. Down from, I think, 64% for the game to 31%. And that could get depressed further if the New York Times playoff calculator does not like the Ravens' offense or does not like the Ravens' defense, as we've seen. These things kind of have life on their own. So I think always the goal was to try to get to 3 wins in these final 5 weeks. And right now, that means that you got to win 3 of these final 4. And that is definitely tough sledding. I don't know. I mean, obviously, the calculus gets a little wonky because if you beat the Steelers in that final game and you force a tiebreaker, then it's obviously not going to be head-to-head. It might not be division, like the Ravens would have to beat the Bengals to have any chance of forcing a tiebreaker with the divisional games, because the Ravens are now a team behind the Steelers in terms of how many games they've lost. So they're just going to have to start winning and start getting a lot of help. I mean, obviously, if you had any fear of the Bengals perhaps catching the Ravens or the Steelers in this one, I think their loss today, along with the Steelers win, basically neutered those chances effectively. But it's a bad division. The Ravens still have a chance of winning it, but can you compare their schedule and who they have to face. With the Steelers, I think they have the Dolphins remaining. They have the Packers, and obviously the Ravens as well, and another game in there. It's definitely, you see why the Steelers have the advantage, to say nothing of the result that they're in today.
Yeah, and the Steelers team was on the ropes. I mean, they're coming off that disastrous game against the Bills, where the offense totally flops. Aaron Rodgers is post-game criticizing his wide receivers and saying guys aren't showing up to meetings. They're booing Renegade in the fourth quarter. This is a Steelers team where the vibes were terrible, and somehow the Ravens found a way to look worse than them today.
Yeah, and you look on Twitter and you see John Harbaugh trending, and you see tweets from folks like Tiafay Lee of The Ringer wondering, are we sure it was Mike Tomlin that we should have been having is this really the end of the line for him? I mean, I think always the thing that you could trust with a John Harbaugh coach team was that they would not embarrass you. Even when they have fallen short and not made the playoffs, typically it has been because of injuries or just because they were right there at the end and just couldn't finish the deal. But like I said, if this team, which is already 6-7, does not win a game for the rest of the year, and some of these games are not competitive, and it would not surprise me if the Ravens could make it competitive against the Bengals and were down by as many as 14 points in the first half today against the Steelers. It could get a whole lot uglier before it gets any better for John Harbaugh. And at that point, again, I still think it's highly unlikely that John Harbaugh's feet will be held to the fire on this. But if this becomes an untenable situation for the fans, for the offense, and for every other component of this Ravens franchise, questions are going to be asked, and they're not going to be very comfortable ones.
Exactly. All right. Well, we'll save those questions for another day because, we have to go home. At Jonas_Shaffer is his handle. I'm at Paul Mancano and at Old Banner Sports. Give us a like, give us a thumbs up, write us a 5-star review, and I will read it out here on the show. We will have plenty more coverage of this game on thebanner.com, where you can subscribe $1 for 6 months.
Shout out to the Banner.
Jonas, you left here. You filed your story on Black Friday after the Ravens lost to the Bengals at 6:30 in the morning.
No, that was. I think I finished it the night before. I just wanted to schedule a timing that made it look a little bit more human.
So, what time did you actually finish the story?
Probably close to 3. I don't know.
What time did you leave here?
I don't remember. It was so long ago.
It's a blur. Yeah. Okay, well, don't stay that late.
I know.
Tonight.
I'm grateful for the range of 1 o'clock games that we have coming up.
That's true. What are you writing about today? Do you know?
Just the rock bottom of it all. Just how bad are things and how bad could things get? Because, like I said, Steelers, not a good defense, not a good offense, still won today relatively comfortably.
Yeah. Gianna Hahn is writing stuff as well. Do you know what she's writing about?
She's writing about the officiating.
Of course. That we spent a large portion of our podcast on today. Charles Walker will have his 5 things. Kyle Goon will have a column as well. So much more covered. And we will have another podcast for you unless something crazy happens this Thursday as we prepare for the Ravens' upcoming game against the Cincinnati